Professor Gabriel Krafft, 11th of March 1944. I'm creating a record of my involvement with the SS unit, Die Wahrheit. This may one day be called into question, and I probably won't be around to explain myself. In early September of 1939, I was in my office at the University of Leipzig with my assistant Franz. We were translating an ancient Sumerian scroll when a man walked in, unannounced. He said I must immediately tender my resignation, pack a suitcase, and depart for an overseas trip as an advisor to the SS battalion Die Wahrheit. That was the first time I met Oberfuhrer Wolfram von List. All I saw was a uniform and the perfect haircut. I had no idea what lay behind those icy blue eyes. I actually laughed. I had heard of his battalion, whose name perversely means the truth. They raided antiquities around the world, looking for evidence to support their belief in an Aryan master race. I waved him away, saying I had no desire to help Reichsfuhrer Himmler twist history to fit the Nazi narrative. Von List calmly drew his Luger and shot poor Franz in the head. His voice was perfectly calm. Do I have your attention now, Herr Professor? Gabriel Krafft, Audio Memoir Part 2. After shooting my assistant, von List had me dragged out of Leipzig University and thrown in an SS prison. There were a dozen other experts already there, recruited from museums and universities across the Reich to assist the SS unit, Die Wahrheit. They were explorers, historians, archaeologists, and so on. Many looked beaten. All looked frightened. Hung on the wall was a map of the world with notes and drawings next to different locations, things like the Grail and Thor's hammer, Atlantis and Shangri-La. We wondered if this was a joke. But when von List arrived, he was dead serious. The Oberfuhrer ordered us to help his troops find the places on that map and retrieve those relics. It made no difference that they did not exist. We would deliver them, or else. The others agreed and filed out to do his bidding. They were not stupid men. I alone defied von List. I said, I know what your Nazis are doing. I've seen friends and neighbors taken away. I've heard what happens at your camps, and I would rather die than help you. Von List showed a flash of anger. And then he smiled. He was amused. I actually thought I had a say in my own fate. Krafft entry number 3. I was surprised von List did not shoot me. I had refused to serve him twice. Instead, he sent his men to my home. They broke down the door and took my spouse to an SS interrogation chamber. I had put my values and dignity ahead of my own life. So von List made someone else pay for my stubbornness. Should I refuse to help Die Wahrheit or drag my feet in any way, the love of my life would be slowly tortured to death. Of course I complied. How could I do otherwise? But I also made a silent promise to myself. I would learn of Die Wahrheit's secrets. If we found anything of real value, I would turn it against them. Somehow, I would destroy von List and his Nazi thugs from within. Greetings. I am Professor Gabriel Krafft. I presume you came in response to my message. The one I radioed just before the containment spell went up. I had hoped for a larger fighting force, but I already see you are no ordinary soldiers. Perhaps you will be enough. But we have quite a challenge ahead. You see, our mission is to stop the man responsible for the nightmare unfolding all around you. The commanding officer of the SS Battalion de Wahrheit. The murderer who has now bonded with an ancient evil. Oberfuhrer Wolfram von List. Left unchecked, he will single-handedly win the war for the Nazis. That may sound preposterous, but I assure you, it is true. In any case, thanks to the containment spell, we are cut off from the outside world. Unable to summon reinforcements, or further warn your superiors. Success or failure is solely up to us. This is Krafft, with some background on the artifacts you carry. They were used by ancient priests and sorcerers in places as far-flung as the Yucatan and the islands of Japan. They were said to commune with angels and summon demons. But when we unearthed these artifacts, we were faced with a mystery. There were strange design details, markings, and materials that simply did not fit the cultures that claimed them. These objects were anomalies, anachronisms. They did not belong in those settings. They were alien. I have since confirmed the artifacts were created in the dark ether dimension. They were cast by inhuman hands, in forms meant to appeal to human aesthetics. Small wonder they got the details wrong. They allowed beings who could not come here physically to visit as spirits and bond with mortal flesh. Some, like Cortifex, were cruel and controlling. Others, like Bellica, were kind and benevolent. Alas, these relics became their prisons. Each demon is now trapped like the proverbial genie in a lamp. Safeguard your artifacts. Study them. Learn to unlock their powers. Just don't try to sell them. Any appraiser worth his salt would dismiss them as forgeries. And in a sense, they would be right. Krafft to Special Forces team. We should talk about the entities you bonded with. You must have so many questions. Fortunately, I taught demonology at the University of Leipzig. I have more than a passing familiarity with your otherworldly partners. Since 1939, I was forced to work for von List and his Die Wahrheit thugs. I helped them recover 5 ancient artifacts. As it turned out, these were conduits to supernatural beings from a place called the Dark Aether. The most powerful among them, Cortifex the Deathless, is in league with Oberfuhrer von List. The demons inhabiting you are his sworn enemies. I shall do all I can to help you take advantage of their gifts, without being corrupted by their influence. Then again, this is a time for uneasy alliances. Who would ever have imagined Churchill and Stalin joining forces? Better the devil you know, as they say. So, for now, we work towards a common purpose with your demons. They need to stop Cortifex. We need to stop von List. Win or lose, we must do this together. Krafft here. As you well know, this area is swarming with revenants. I just want to reassure you that I myself am quite safe for the moment. Since the day the artifacts awoke, von List kept me by his side. After all, I'm as close as there is to an expert on the entity dwelling within him. When we arrived here in Stalingrad, it took the locals by surprise. The last thing they expected was the Nazis to return. But von List had been here when the Germans surrendered. He wants to turn the site of their greatest loss into the source of Nazi victory. To do this, he will raise an army of revenants from the millions who perished on the Eastern Front. But to accomplish such a feat, Cortifex must first build up his strength. Von List locked me in this room with my books and the radio. I watched from my window as he called upon Cortifex to seal off this part of the city. And I knew I had to act. Once I radioed for help, I used what I learned from the Tome of Rituals. The rune magic in its pages sealed this room. Of course, I have no idea how to undo the spell, but for now, neither Von List nor his revenants can touch me here. And now that you have responded to my cry for help, we must work together. We must stall their progress and gather information on Devorheit's activities. I will continue to advise you while I formulate a plan to stop them once and for all. Until then, keep fighting, my champions. We must strengthen your demons if we have any hope of winning.